What's next? A lot of questions for what is next when it comes to this election, Mandy.
That is for sure, Sally. Well, Candy Rodriguez joins us live this morning with a look at the next legal steps for both Trump and Biden. Good morning, Candy.
Amanda, Sally, good morning. And joining us live this morning is UT professor and historian, Dr. Jeremi Suri. And thank you for joining us, Dr. Suri. You've been covering the presidential elections for many years, so you've seen a lot of things happen throughout the years. But what's next for this specific election, and what can we expect to hear from both parties later this morning?
So in the next day to 2 days, the states that are still in play, and there's 6 or 7 of them really, as many as 8 or 9 by some count, they will continue to count the ballots. So the ballots will continue to be counted in Wisconsin. Wisconsin will finish probably first. Michigan and Pennsylvania will continue to count ballots, Arizona, Nevada. And as those ballots are counted, you will see the different campaigns jockeying to try to control the narrative. The Biden campaign will continue to argue that the count should go on. These are all citizens who voted before the end of Election Day in their states. And some of the ballots had not been counted because they came from very densely populated areas in Philadelphia and Detroit, or they were mailed in, or they were early ballots of one kind or another. The Trump campaign will want to try to stop the count. That's what President Trump has already said, but there really isn't much legal basis for that. Once we have counts from the various states, wherever that takes us, there will certainly be disputes in some of these states. That's where some of the legal action will occur. But the legal action would occur on a state-to-state basis. The President of the United States, despite what he said, cannot sue to stop the election in the Supreme Court. There has to be a state-to-state set of suits. And of course, there might be some recounts in some states. So we will have counting and recounting and legal debates going on for probably at least a week.
Yeah, and early this morning, we already heard from President Trump. He mentioned that he will work to stop counting the votes that are left to be counted. He even mentioned that he could take this to the Supreme Court. What type of president is there, if any, and what sort of legal options does his party and does he have?
So we've had many disputed elections in American history. 1876 is another example. 2000, of course, when in Florida we had a very, very close race, and that case actually did make its way to the Supreme Court. But the only way a case makes its way to the Supreme Court is when there's a specific claim about something a specific state is doing. We do not actually have one national presidential election. We have 50, actually 51 with Washington, D.C., 51 separate presidential elections. And so, as with any other set of legal issues, there has to be a specific claim made about something that the president believes is not appropriate that's being done in a particular state. It's very hard to make a claim, though, simply because you think they should stop voting after election night. It's also particularly hard when, in the president's case, he wants them to keep counting in Arizona and Nevada because he's behind there. He's now behind in Wisconsin, but he wants them to stop counting in Pennsylvania where he's ahead. That doesn't work either. So I think we'll see different strategies in different states, and in the end, it'll probably come down to 2 or 3 states where we'll see the most debate going on.
Dr. Suri, thank you so much for your time this morning. Tom and Sally, I'm sure it'll be a couple of days before we actually get all those results coming.
A couple of days, yeah, Candy, maybe even more. Thank you. Appreciate you and the professor there talking to us, giving us an idea of what we can expect or what we can't expect in the next few days.